Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Star Wars Expanded Universe Book Talk with Dorn Geek. I am your host, Dorn Geek, as you can see on the screen. I don't know why I have to tell you guys that. You guys can see it on the screen. Anyways, we are going to start getting into the Callista 3-book cycle, and I need... First of all, I need to say a couple of things before we start this little part of our journey. I've had some wonderful, amazing friends really kind of get on me about the fact that in the previous book talks, I haven't given any acknowledgement to the artwork that I was using. And yes, it's got to stop. And yes, I have to start doing that. So I'm going to, okay? And where I'm going to start is with this book talk. From here on out, you will start to see me acknowledge either the artist or uploader, and I'll get better at it as we go. I'll figure it out as we go. The other thing I have to say, and this one specifically, are you listening? Specifically to this book talk, I am going to talk about a recommendation at the end of this book talk, and I highly suggest that you take it. This book, this is not my favorite book. Is it a necessary book? Well, sort of. I'll get into it more at the end, but today we are going to talk about Children of the Jedi. Oh, and I wanted to say one more thing. I called this the Callista 3-book cycle. A lot of people refer to it as the Callista trilogy. You might remember from my Timothy Zahn Thrawn 3-book cycle talk that I always called that a 3-book cycle. Why am I not calling this one a trilogy, you might ask, even though it's very much in the lexicon and very much traditional to call this one a trilogy, the Callista trilogy. The reason I'm not using it is because it's not the same author all throughout. So I don't think like there's two authors to this series of books. So a trilogy to me kind of means not just the same characters and stuff, but the same creators. And these 3 books do not have the same creators. So instead of using the title trilogy, I'm pivoting to the title 3-book cycle because it's not the same person writing every book. That's my reason. So let's get into talking about Children of the Jedi, which begins the Callista 3-book cycle. Let's go. Yes, we are talking about the Callista trilogy, and this is going to be a tough one for me to get through personally. This is I don't know. I don't know if it's my least favorite book of all overall, but I think it might be. Let's do it anyways. We want to talk about it. There are some good things to talk about. I'll gripe about the things anyways, here we go. This book, Children of the Jedi, was published in April of 1995. This is one of those weird books again, where there's like no super specific publishing date. It's just sometime in April 1995. I don't know if that means like maybe it was just published on April 1st. Couldn't possibly be that, right? April Fool's joke. It was written by It was written by Barbara Hambly. She gets better at this, but in this book, I hate to say this, but she doesn't know how to write a Star Wars book. She knows vaguely how to write a sci-fi book. I'll give her that. She's all right at that. But to write a Star Wars book is a different thing. Let's get into the timeline. we're talking 12 ABY, 12 years after the Battle of Yavin. So 12 years out from the destruction of the first Death Star, kind of an important thing in this particular book. We're 12 years out from the death of Grand Moff Tarkin. Things were changing, right? We're also 8 years out from Return of the Jedi and the destruction of the second Death Star. And I really, to me, this is a very important part of lore that has to be talked about with this book, because it makes a difference that these massive super weapons were both destroyed. We're also 3 years out. It's been 3 years since the Thrawn crisis, let's call it. And on your screen right now, you're looking at Joruus C'baoth, as they pronounce him. It's C'baoth. It's C'baoth. I know. I always pronounce it C'baoth. The audiobook pronounces it C'baoth, but it's C'baoth. That's going to be important. And finally, we're 1 year out from the Jedi Academy trilogy. We're only 1 year after those incidents, I guess you might call it, that story, that lore. And perhaps most important to this one, we're 1 year out from the Kip Duran part of the story. Okay, let's look at the ages of some of our heroes in this. Luke and Leia Skywalker. The Skywalker twins are 31. I know nobody ever calls her Leia Skywalker, but she's part of the Skywalker twins, so I'm going to do it. They are 31 years old now. My goodness, when we met them in A New Hope, they were 19. They were just 19. They were babies. And now they're 31 years old. It's an interesting thing. Another interesting dynamic is that Han Solo is now 41 years old. The age gap between Leia and Han is becoming more acceptable as we go, right? Like, it's really cringe when he's 29 and she's 19. Now she's 31, he's 41. You're gonna like, well, I guess, whatever. Also, we got to talk about Mara Jade again. Mara Jade is going to show up in this book, and she is 29. She's 2 years younger than the Skywalker twins. And Mara is going to be an interesting, kind of weird part of this book. We know who she is. Very important character as we continue down the timeline, but not going to take a huge role in this series, but she's definitely going to be there. And then we have Jason and Jaina Solo. The Solo twins are 3 years old in this book. I know I couldn't find a 3-year-old picture of them. This is about the youngest I could find, the Solo twins. Jen Kerr, by the way, did the art. You can't really read it on here, so I'm going to tell you guys that. But very wonderful piece of art there of young Solo twins, young Jason and Jaina. They're going to be a part of this this story. Cray Mingla is 26. That's okay. So it matters. I'm going to say that it matters to a point, but it only matters to a point because Cray is going to be a weird character for us to discuss in this book in any way, shape, or form. And then Callista, I'm using the same image that I was using at the beginning of it. And there's a reason to it. As you read the book, you'll definitely understand. Callista's age is so unbearably complicated at this point. It's like, oh my god, it's like trying with I'm just not even going to talk about what. Maybe if I do a quick talk on that book. Let's talk about the major places that we are going to visit so I can get my mind off of that. Let's talk about the major places that we are going to visit in this book. We're going to visit Belsavis. That's probably a world that you're familiar with, at least hearing the name of it. You will learn a lot about Belsavis. You will learn about some of the unique, interesting things having to deal with Belsavis. Its history mostly is the big thing that you're going to learn about Belsavis, is the history that it's going to talk about. And it's interesting. I wish somebody else had written about it. That's You're also going to read about Pasab. This is going to be, I think for everybody, it's going to be a unique world, okay? There is nothing like Pasab in the Star Wars lexicon, and I'm teasing it just a little bit, okay, a little more than just a little bit, with what you see right there. Like, we've only known these particular creatures to be on one world. Well, of course, they had to come from somewhere else, right? Because nothing is native to Tatooine except for two things. So instead, we're going to get a weird history. And then the last major place that we're really going to deal with in this book is a place called the Eye of Palpatine. And I don't mean the Eye of Palpatine. I mean, over there, the Eye of Palpatine. You might be looking at it thinking to yourself, it's just a rock. It's just a stupid rock, Dorn. And you're not wrong, but you're definitely not right. And here's my tease for how you're definitely not right in there. The Eye of Palpatine is an interesting concept, but Barbara Hambly ruins it. I'm sorry. I don't want to complain this much about her, but this book. Let's talk about some major characters that are in this book, major relationships as well. A big major relationship that you're going to run into in this book is the relationship between Han Solo, Leia Organa Solo, and a new character, Drub McCum. And we're going to learn a lot about who Drub is. We're going to learn a lot about his history for this book, how he knows Han, what sort of interactions you're going to have between Han and Leia and Drub. A little bit of Luke thrown in there for a little while, but the important and major relationship is between these three people. So we're going to learn about Han and Leia and how they interact and are related to Drub McCum. We have to talk about this character, Callista Ming, and her relationship to the Eye of Palpatine. There we have it again, the Eye of Palpatine. And again, the Eye of Palpatine is an interesting concept. This relationship between Callista and the Eye of Palpatine is truly unique, but it gets a lot of flack. And I don't want to say that all the flack it gets is necessarily wrong, because, man, sometimes you read this, or you go over it, or you talk about it, and you're like, really? then I think the jewel relationship in this entire thing is the relationship between Roganda Ismarin and Eric Ismarin. I don't even want to really tell you what the specific relationship is, how they are related, how they do relate to each other, because I feel like that's almost giving away too much, and I want to tease this. I don't want to give away too much to all of you. I just want to tease. So my tease is there is a relationship between two people named Roganda Ismarin and Eric Ismarin, and it's not something you're going to miss. Don't worry, you're going to know exactly what it is. Roganda's relationship with other characters is fairly interesting too, but it's sort of a side thing, a little bit. So then we got to talk about Luke and his relationship with Cray Mingla. There's another different depiction of Cray Mingla there, and Cray Mingla is not written well. I'll just say that. There's a reason for it. Yes, it's a setup to something else, but man, it's fairly disappointing and fairly upsetting, even to set you up to meet Cray Mingla, because she could have been written so much better. That's all I'll say about it. She could have been written so much better, okay? And unfortunately, her relationship with another character, I don't know how to pronounce this. I've heard it pronounced several different ways. Nichos. I think Nikos probably like it rolls off the tongue a little better. But Cray Mingla and her relationship with Nikos Mar it's a good relationship in this book. It's one that gives us some good feels, makes us feel like we have something important, but it's, again, this relationship, as important as it needs to be for the book, is actually it deserves better. That's all I'll say. I'm teasing this one a little bit because we got to talk about Luke's relationship with a computer. And no, I am not talking about Luke's relationship with C-3PO. I am not talking about Luke's relationship with R2-D2. I am not talking about Luke's relationship with a droid in any capacity here. Although, so there's going to be another one that I'm not talking about, which is Luke's relationship with another sort of type of computer. But this is one very specific type of computer, as you see there. Luke's relationship with this computer, I think this is the thing that gets people the most in this book and makes them sigh the most and like kind of wish this book didn't exist. Anyways, let's go on to the major events in this book, because we gotta keep moving, otherwise I'll complain about things way too much for this book. The mission. So we're gonna get to see what the mission of the Eye of Palpatine was and how that relates to Belsavis. Okay? It's those two things are very connected in this book. Okay? Then we're going to be talking about how that is also related to this character Roganda Ismarin and an Imperial Inquisitor. This, I believe, might be the very first mention of an Imperial Inquisitor. Okay? Then we have to go back to something that we've had in a previous book, or couple of books actually, which is encountering yet another insane Jedi. Okay? That right there you see the insane clone of Joruus C'baoth, Joruus C'baoth. And then we're pivoting to something that we saw earlier in the book talk. I'm tempted to give the whole thing away here, but again, I'm trying to tease you into finding, well, not quite the book in this case. I'll talk about that at the end of this book talk. But we're also going to get into Mara Jade, and very specifically Mara Jade's upsetting discovery that she makes in this book. And if you know about, I'm teasing it with that image, if you know about the relationship that image implies, then you have sort of an idea, but what you don't know is her reaction to it. This, by the way, her reaction to it, I think, colors a lot of what that relationship was. Hints at it in a lot of ways. It comes back up. It shows back up in other books and stuff. But this one really kind of pushed it. Okay. Other major events that we're going to get into in this book, we're going to have Luke, and this is the one thing that Barbara Hambly did very, very correctly in this book, is we see Luke being very extremely Luke Skywalker. Jedi Luke Skywalker being exactly who he is. What are Luke's greatest gifts? What is his greatest strength? That's something you might want to think about as I tease you into this. Who is Luke Skywalker, Jedi Knight, at his absolute core? And what did they screw up the most about his absolute core in the Disney fanfiction sequels? Let's move on. How we're going to get to find out how the Eye of Palpatine's mission is thwarted. And I am teasing you again with that image, part of the cover of the book. I've been talking about what was the Eye of Palpatine's mission, and I've been sort of teasing you with the idea, and I've been leading you in a direction, but again, I'm not going to give it away. I will end it. I'll make you wonder about it. How is the Eye of Palpatine's mission thwarted? And the characters that I'm showing in these two slides that go with this particular bullet really tell you a lot. I'm actually trying to give you the ability to connect the dots later after you experience the book. I'm going to put it that way, experience the book. And then you'll have the end. And the end of this book is the most important part of this book. Okay? Wildly more important than the entire rest of the book. Okay? The end is really important. I'm not even going to mention the slides. I'm just going to let you look at them. There I go, mentioning the slides. But the end of this book and what happens, I don't know if you'll consider it cool. I don't know if you'll consider it well done. But I will tell you this, for the future of this Star Wars Expanded Universe post-Jedi timeline, the end of this book is vitally important. Okay? Before I let you go today, let me give you a recommendation. This is a recommendation that I almost never give, and I don't do this lightly. And I know a lot of people are going to think this is a super hot take. And I'm only going to make this recommendation for this book in particular. I will have recommendations kind of like this, and I'll do a separate video on sort of those recommendations. But for this book, for Children of the Jedi, do yourself a favor and please, please, please just get the abridged audiobook and listen to that. It's enough of the plot that you get everything you need out of it, and you do not have to deal with the fact that Barbara Hambly simply doesn't know Star Wars. And when I say that, I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here, everybody. So let me adjust just a little bit. Let me get a little closer to the mic. I don't think it occurred to me when I first read it, because it was still an early Star Wars Expanded Universe book, and I was young, and you're able to ignore things like that quite a bit easier when you're young. But somebody, I think maybe YJK Audiobooks on YouTube, but maybe somebody else, but I think YJK Audiobooks did an unabridged, like, text-to-speech audiobook version of this book, the complete unabridged, and the whole time I was listening to it, I was going, wait a minute, why are you saying anti-grav? Wait a minute. Why are you using this, like, blanket sci-fi term instead of the Star Wars specific term that actually exists for Star Wars? Why? You did absolutely zero research on the Star Wars lexicon. And my goodness, it's not like this was the first book. This is published in like 95. We're like 4 years after Zahn wrote the Thrawn books, where, by the way, he got all of it right. What the? I'm just going to stop. Just do yourself a favor. Get the abridged audiobook. I will probably never recommend the abridged audiobook for anything else. I will tell you in my recommendations for audiobooks, like where to find things and when the abridged is good enough. If you don't want to, like, listen to a text-to-speech audiobook or something like that, because those are your only choices. But for this one, no. It's just straight up. Listen to the abridged one. It's all you need, and you skip all the, not all, but most of the pain that the full book puts you through. My goodness. Luckily, the next book in the Callista 3-book cycle is Dark Saber, written by Kevin J. Anderson, who is much better at writing Star Wars. So I will see you for that next book talk. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening to me rant a little bit. I will see you next time. Bye, everybody, and may the Force be with you.